An Iranian warship was sailing through the Indian Ocean this morning. 180 sailors were on board. The ship had just finished a prestigious naval exercise in the Bay of Bengal. The crew thought they were heading home. They thought they were in international waters, thousands of miles from any war zone. They thought they were safe. Then a torpedo came out of nowhere and they never saw it coming. Right now, 80 Iranian sailors are confirmed dead. 101 are missing. Only 32 people survived. And Pete Hegseth walked into the Pentagon a few hours ago, played the video on a giant screen for the entire world to see, and said two words that will go down in history: quiet death. He then added this: the first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. Let that land for a second. The last time the United States Navy used a torpedo to destroy an enemy warship, Harry Truman was president. The Korean War had not even started yet. That was 1945, 81 years ago. And today in 2026, on day 5 of the war with Iran, it happened again. Not in the Persian Gulf, not in the Red Sea, not anywhere near the Middle East, in the Indian Ocean, off the southern coast of Sri Lanka, thousands of miles from Tehran. This is not just a war story, this is a history story, and it changes everything about where this war is going next. The ship that was sunk was called the IRIS Dena. It was a Muj-class frigate, which is Iran's most modern and capable class of surface warship. This was not an old boat. This was a serious military vessel weighing 1,500 tons, armed with Qatar anti-ship missiles, Sayyad air defense missiles, a 76mm main gun, lightweight torpedoes of its own, and a sophisticated 3D phased array radar system. This ship was designed to track incoming threats. It was built to fight and survive in combat. It had the sensors and the weapons to defend itself. None of that mattered. The IRIS Dena had just participated in the International Fleet Review 2026 and a major multinational exercise called Milan, organized by the Indian Navy. This was a prestige assignment for Tehran, Iran sending one of its best ships to participate in international exercises, projecting an image of a professional navy that belongs on the world stage. The ship finished those exercises and began making its way back toward Iran. The crew had no idea that a United States Navy fast attack submarine had already found them, had already been tracking them silently for who knows how long, had already been given the order. At dawn on March 4th, between 6 and 7 in the morning local time, the IRIS Dena sent out a distress call. Sri Lanka's Navy and Air Force launched an immediate search and rescue operation. Sri Lankan Foreign Minister Vijitha Herath went to Parliament personally to address what had happened. He told them 180 sailors had been on board. Sri Lanka's Navy pulled 32 survivors from the ocean and rushed them to Karapitiya Teaching Hospital in Galle. Divers and rescue crews recovered several bodies. Sri Lanka's Deputy Foreign Minister then confirmed the number that shocked the world: 80 Iranian sailors killed, 101 still unaccounted for. The Iranian embassy in Colombo sent 2 officers directly to Galle to speak with the survivors and find out exactly what happened to their ship. And then hours later, Pete Hegseth ended all the speculation. He stood at the Pentagon podium, played periscope footage released by the Department of War, and said this: yesterday in the Indian Ocean, an American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, then added his own statement. For the first time since 1945, a United States Navy fast attack submarine has sunk an enemy combatant ship, using a single Mark 48 torpedo to achieve immediate effect, sending the warship to the bottom of the sea. I want to remind everybody that this is an incredible demonstration of America's global reach to hunt, find, and kill. Hunt, find, and kill. Those were the exact words the chairman of the Joint Chiefs used in front of cameras today. Now let me explain why the Mark 48 torpedo is so devastating and why the IRIS Dena never had a real chance once it was in the crosshairs. The Mark 48 is a heavyweight torpedo with approximately a 650-pound warhead. But here is the part that most people do not understand. It does not hit the side of the ship. It detonates underneath the hull, below the waterline. The pressure wave from that explosion physically lifts the entire vessel off the water. We are talking about 1,500 tons being thrown into the air, and when it comes back down, the hull buckles. Sometimes it breaks in half. In the Pentagon footage released today, you can see the IRIS Dena being violently jolted upward before it begins to sink bow first into the ocean. The crew of the IRIS Dena had radar. They had their own missiles. They had torpedoes. And it did not matter because the United States submarine that fired this torpedo was already beneath the waves before the Iranian sailors had any idea there was a threat within 1,000 miles of them. American fast attack submarines are among the quietest machines ever built by human beings. They run on nuclear power. They never need to surface. They can follow a surface ship for days without making a sound. The IRIS Dena's 3D phased array radar, which can track threats in the sky and on the surface, cannot see what is below the waterline. By the time anyone on that ship felt anything, the torpedo was already underneath them. This is why CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper posted that video on social media the day before with a message so direct it left nothing to interpretation. Sinking the Iranian Navy, the entire Navy. Today, there is not a single Iranian ship underway in the Arabian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, or Gulf of Oman, and we will not stop. He meant every word. Now, here is what makes this particular moment in this war historically significant beyond just the military achievement. Pay close attention to where this sinking happened. Not the Persian Gulf, not the Arabian Sea, not even the Gulf of Oman, the Indian Ocean, off Sri Lanka. This is United States 7th Fleet territory. The 7th Fleet covers the Indo-Pacific. This is the same fleet whose resources are supposed to be available to deter China if Beijing ever moves on Taiwan. And the United States Navy just used 7th Fleet assets to hunt and sink an Iranian warship thousands of miles from the primary theater of war. The Naval Institute, one of the most credible military publications in America, specifically noted today that this marks the first time the Iran conflict has expanded to 7th Fleet operations. That is not a small detail. That is a strategic shift that every military analyst in Beijing noticed this morning. Because here is the question that nobody in the Trump administration wants to answer on camera right now. If United States submarines are hunting Iranian warships in the Indian Ocean, and American aircraft carriers, destroyers, and missile cruisers are all concentrated in the Middle East for Operation Epic Fury, what exactly is left to deter China in the Pacific? This war started 5 days ago. China has been watching every Tomahawk fired, every Patriot interceptor launched, every piece of American military hardware consumed in this fight. They are counting, and they know that stockpiles of the most expensive and most critical munitions do not refill overnight. Let us now look at the full picture of what has happened to Iran's Navy in just 5 days, because the IRIS Dena was not the beginning. It was the latest chapter in what Hegseth today called the total destruction of Iran's naval capability. On day 1, February 28th, U.S. forces struck Iranian naval bases along the southern coast. Satellite images showed multiple ships burning at Konarak Naval Base. On day 2, March 1st, the United States sank the IRIS Submarine, another Muj-class frigate, the sister ship of the IRIS Dena. The Submarine was considered Iran's most operationally active surface combatant. By day 3, the confirmed destruction had reached 11 Iranian vessels, including what Hegseth specifically described as Iran's most operational submarine, which he said had a hole in its side. By day 4, the number climbed to 17 Iranian ships destroyed. This included a Soleimani-class missile catamaran corvette, a drone carrier called Shahid Bagheri, and Iran's forward base ship, the IRIS Makran. And today, day 5, the IRIS Dena, hunted down in international waters halfway across the world, sunk by a single torpedo, 80 dead, over 100 missing. Hegseth's assessment at the Pentagon today was delivered without any diplomatic softening. Iran's Navy is, in his words, combat ineffective, decimated, destroyed, and defeated. Admiral Cooper confirmed there is not a single Iranian naval vessel currently underway in any of the waterways surrounding Iran. Think about what that means strategically. Iran spent decades building its entire deterrence posture around one central threat, the Strait of Hormuz. Approximately 20% of the entire world's oil supply passes through that narrow waterway every single day. For years, Iranian leaders told the world that if America ever attacked Iran, Iran would close the strait and bring the global economy to its knees. That threat was the shield behind which Iran built its nuclear program, funded Hezbollah, armed the Houthis, and pushed back against every American demand. The threat of Hormuz was Iran's ultimate card. In 5 days, that card has been taken away. But here is where experienced military analysts and historians are pushing back hard on the celebration. Destroying Iran's conventional navy is not the same thing as winning this war. Iran still has its ballistic missile arsenal. It has already launched more than 500 ballistic missiles and over 2,000 drones in 5 days of fighting. That rate of fire has slowed as U.S. and Israeli strikes degrade launch sites and stockpiles, but it has not stopped. Iran still has the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, which is a completely separate force from the regular Navy. The IRGC Navy operates small, fast attack boats, naval mines, and short-range missiles in the shallow waters of the Strait of Hormuz and Persian Gulf. Destroying the conventional frigates does not neutralize the IRGC Navy. And Iran still has its proxy network. Hezbollah in Lebanon has been firing rockets at northern Israel since the war began. Iraq-based militias claimed responsibility for 28 separate attacks in the region in the past 24 hours alone. The Houthis in Yemen continue to threaten Gulf shipping. None of these forces were on the IRIS Dena. What Hegseth said at the Pentagon today about the next phase of this war is something every viewer needs to hear very carefully. He said the operation is now shifting from what he called exquisite standoff munitions, meaning long-range cruise missiles and precision-guided bombs fired from distance, to something far more direct and far more intense. He said that with complete control of Iran's airspace achieved within the next few days, U.S. and Israeli aircraft will be flying over Tehran freely, dropping 500-pound, 1,000-pound, and 2,000-pound GPS and laser-guided gravity bombs around the clock. He described it as finding, fixing, and finishing the missiles and defense industrial base of the Iranian military, and finding and fixing their leaders. He also said the timeline is no longer just 4 weeks. When a reporter pressed him on the duration, Hegseth said, and again, these are his exact words, you can say 4 weeks, but it could be 6, it could be 8, it could be 3. Ultimately, we set the pace and the tempo. 6 to 8 weeks, the president said 4. The Secretary of War just extended the outer limit to 8. And this matters enormously because on the same day Hegseth was at the Pentagon expanding the timeline, senators of both parties were walking out of a classified briefing on the war and telling reporters they were more fearful than ever that the United States could end up sending ground troops into Iran. Senator Richard Blumenthal said he was more fearful than ever the U.S. could be putting boots on the ground. Multiple Democratic senators called for greater public accountability, and in the House and Senate today, both chambers held votes on war powers resolutions, putting lawmakers on record about whether they believe Trump had the legal authority to launch this war at all without congressional approval. This is a constitutional question with no clean answer. The U.S. Constitution gives Congress the exclusive power to declare war. The president serves as commander-in-chief with authority to respond to immediate threats. Trump notified Congress of the strikes, telling lawmakers the threat from Iran had become untenable. Democrats challenged that justification. Oman, which was actively mediating between the U.S. and Iran, publicly stated the two sides were close to a deal when the strikes began. Trump himself told The Atlantic that Iran's new leadership wanted to resume negotiations and that he had agreed to talk to them. He said they should have done it sooner and waited too long. So the United States is currently fighting a war against a country that was reportedly days from a diplomatic agreement, a war that has now expanded beyond the Middle East to the Indian Ocean, a war whose timeline has already grown from 4 weeks to possibly 8, a war that has killed 6 American service members and wounded 18 more, a war that has grounded every major Gulf airline, stranded over 1 million travelers, and sent oil prices surging, a war in which NATO has now been drawn in after its air defense systems shot down an Iranian ballistic missile heading toward Turkey's airspace. And at the center of all of it today, a single Mark 48 torpedo, a U.S. submarine nobody can name in international waters where no one expected a battle. 180 Iranian sailors who thought they were heading home, 80 who will never get there, and Pete Hegseth calling it quiet death. There is nothing quiet about what is coming next. Hegseth said it himself at the Pentagon this morning, and he said it with the kind of certainty that should make everyone paying attention stop and listen very carefully. We are accelerating, not decelerating. We are only 4 days into this. We have only just begun to fight. More bombers, more fighters arriving today, more waves coming, larger waves. This war started 5 days ago. A supreme leader is dead. An entire navy is destroyed. A warship was just torpedoed in the Indian Ocean. Iran is firing missiles at 9 countries simultaneously. Congress is voting on whether this war is even legal. And the man in charge of America's military is standing at a podium telling the world the country has only just begun. If you want to understand where this goes in the next 72 hours, the next week, and the next 8 weeks, you need to stay with this channel. Because every single day, this war produces developments that would have been front-page news for a month in any previous era. We are covering all of it every day with the facts you need to actually understand what is happening and why it matters to your life right now. Subscribe if you have not. Hit the notification bell, because the next update in this war could change everything you think you know about how it ends.